So this is Evil Butter featuring Stealing Sheep by Mera Bhai. And Mera Bhai's in the studio today.
In the house.
Yes, it's so nice to see you. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Pleasure to see you again as well. It's been a hot minute since we've seen each other.
It has. I think it's been like 7 or 8 years or something.
Crazy.
2017 maybe, or 2016.
Yeah.
So I can't do the maths. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
But ages ago.
Yeah.
When you Flamingods came on my show. Flamingods, not Flamingods.
Yes, yeah.
Flamingods. I did get it right. The muscle memory was there. Flamingods came in, which is obviously the band that you're in.
Yes.
And we did a live session and all of that on the radio, and it was lovely.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
And then since then, obviously, so much has happened. Flamingods still happening. Mera Bhai emerging.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, obviously it's a long period of time to sort of, but tell me about starting to make your own music. And obviously we've got a new EP coming from you, which is the second EP, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I had to check for a second. That's right. So I'd been writing on my own, like writing solo stuff for years, but just in bits and bobs and kind of like channeling most of that towards Flamingods. And then I think just before the pandemic, I went back to India for like 2 months, largely spent by myself. And then I was just finishing up a record, and it kind of coincided with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I had the best part of that year to kind of tie things up. And it just felt like quite an important thing for me to do, just to be channeling some of my energy into something fresh. I think when you're doing any kind of musical project, it's important to like to not try and put too much of yourself into that one project, because it stops it being what it wants to be. I feel like you end up trying to shoehorn like way too many different things into that one thing just because you need to express yourself musically.
Yeah.
So for me, having that other channel was really important, because prior to that, I'd been putting on warehouse parties and like DJing and playing like club music essentially for best part of 10 years.
Yeah.
So it was good for me to have another outlet and avoid turning Flamingods into a rave project.
It was like, inching in that direction. And also, I guess, like you say, like it just kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. If you've got fingers in different pies, doing different things, it's like those different parts of your creative brain and creativity are able to get there.
Yeah, it's just really healthy, I think.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then it was just a pandemic, and then I think then I ended up writing another record, which is this one, and I shelved it for a year, and then I came back to it and I rewrote it, which was also another sort of voyage of discovery for me. And that's what's coming out now. It was kind of really good for me just to take a step back and just spend another year just writing and producing and doing other creative things as well. Yeah.
And the EP is titled Relax Into Yourself. It's coming out on the 6th of April.
Yes.
I guess, relax into yourself. That's also part of that. Was that you just kind of taking the reins off and just doing what felt good? Yeah,
pretty much. I think there was like a lot of stuff that happened in that period of time. I lost a few family members, and I felt like there was, I think within this kind of electronic music domain, there's not much room for like discourse around mental health and stuff like that. And for me, it's always something that has been at the forefront of my conversations with friends, with people, with peers, but it's never something I really delved into musically. So actually, I think part of the reason I shelved that record and came back to it, because it felt like it needed to be a bit more honest. So I think I kind of did that on the musical side. Collaborations wise, I think everything aligned, everything was quite synchronous. But so it's kind of really delving into a more emotional side of what that feels like for me. It's not like a rave, it's not like a clubby dancey record. It's I think it feels a bit more emotional than that in a way. Yeah.
And talk to me about Evil Butter. Obviously you were Stealing Sheep on that one. They were your collaborators. Tell me about the origin story of that track and how it came together.
So I kind of wrote that quite a while ago, and it was, the vocals were all heavily sampled from self-help audiobooks from the 90s, which was it was just tried to be quite pastiche with it. It was meant to be and is quite tongue-in-cheek, And for ages, I fired it to a few different people, collaborators, friends, and it didn't quite work out. And I just heard them on it. I knew it would sound. I knew how it would sound. So I sent it to them, and I was really, really happy that they were up for doing it. And they were just such a pleasure to collaborate with. We never actually spent time in studio together, because it happened over the pandemic, but they sent me like so many stems, and they riffed off the vocal lines, and they came up with stuff, and yeah, it was amazing actually.
Yeah.
It was so like, there was such an abundance of stuff to work with. It was great.
Yeah, and then when you got it back, was it just it's kind of like a fun game?
It was so fun, yeah.
Putting it all together.
Yeah, totally. Kind of like, what I typically do is I'll just like take everything, listen to it, chop it up, arrange it, rearrange it, and then layer stuff. But yeah, they just gave me so much to work with. They're the best. Yeah, they're great, and they're also just like, they have such an artistic vision. That's what it was about for me on this one particularly. They're not just musicians. They're the whole thing. Yeah. They've got such a wicked vision, which I think very much fit into the idea of this track. It's quite performative. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's meant to be quite tongue in cheek.
Yeah. And when you're picking collaborators, because there's quite a few, really great people that you're working with on all of these. Some I hadn't heard of, some I have. What is it about for you? Are they kind of just part of your extended network and friends, or are they people that you've admired and that you've tapped up and sent that email?
Both, actually. I mean, both meaning that they are all people that I know. They are all friends. They are all people who, over the last 10, 12 years in the band in Flamingods, I've crossed paths with, and I've always admired musically. So I've always seen, I'm very fortunate to have spent so many years touring and seeing other people do their thing. So I kind of had, whenever I'm writing stuff, I have an idea of who could fit on that track. And for me, it's always about reaching out to people I have a pre-existing relationship with in some way, because I know it's not just about a musical admiration, but it's on a personal level. I know that we can connect. Yeah. So for me, I think the idea of like cold collaboration with someone, maybe that's something I should try actually, but it seems a bit daunting. And I think if I know I've got some kind of rapport with someone, it's not just musical, it's personal as well. So that's essentially how most of them, all of them came together. Yeah,
you can sort of like help elevate each other, and also they have an identity, you have an identity, and those things come together.
Yeah.
Ooh, whoops. It's like kicking stools around. Excited. Too excited. You have a studio, is it Margate you're based these days?
No, I live in South London.
You live in South London?
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought Margate.
Well, because
I think I might be thinking of someone else.
No, a lot of the EP was recorded there, actually. So the last record I put out was on Moshi. Yeah. And they have Pra Studios there. So I went down not during the pandemic, I mean after the pandemic, and recorded some stuff there, and a lot of that ended up being the basis for what is this forthcoming EP.
Yes, yeah. Nice to be by the sea and making music.
It was the luxury, it was really, really nice.
Yeah. And you, I mean, as a person, you've lived in a lot of different places, and not just kind of like different parts of the country, or that you like different continents.
Yeah, very much.
Tell me a bit about growing up, and because you're born in London, roots in India, but then you lived in lots of different places.
Yeah. So
was that family travel? Like was that?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think
dad's job or mum's job. Or
exactly. Yeah, it was that. Yeah, so with my dad's work, we moved around. So I grew up. Most of my formative years were in Italy. Then I was in Saudi, and then Dubai, then Albania. My parents moved to Nigeria. I was there for a bit, and I moved here when I was like 13, 14. But so it was pretty wild actually, moving around so much and living in such different places. And every year from childhood, I'd spend all of my holidays in India. Yeah. So the connection there is stronger than anywhere else. Really, that's home. That kind of feels like home for me. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's interesting. It's really formed my musical voice as well, because like I've always been. I've always known what I've liked, and then I've always been influenced by where I'm at as well. So like from a young age, I was listening to like dance and electronic music. One of my first tapes was like Apollo 440 techno record and like random stuff. So yeah, I think it was really good for me artistically and musically to be doing that, to be moving around.
Yeah, you must have just been like a bit of a sponge, just picking up all these different cultures' music. And,
yeah, definitely. Like listening to Albanian folk music and then like, you know, Indian classical music in India and stuff like that. It was all, stuff that I very much appreciate way like more now than I ever have done.
Yeah. Sure. Well, let's play another track and then we will talk more about this track and more about the EP and what's to come. But this tune is Midnight to Dawn and this one features Maria Uzor. This is Mera Bhai live in the studio and we're going to be talking more after this. So this is Midnight to Dawn featuring Maria Uzor and it's by Mera Bhai, who's my live guest on Music Discovery here on Soho Radio this month. Midnight to Dawn, I love that. Just the kind of like the dance beats, really gorgeous sounds, just echoey and lovely with Maria, who was in Sink Your Teeth.
Yes,
people might know of her work before. But talk to me about that track and how she came to be on it and how that process was.
Similarly to the collaboration with Stealing Sheep, we never spent any time in studio, actually. But I hit her up with a really, really early version of this track that sounds like, so in comparison, very, very, well, quite lo-fi. It sounds a bit more Chicago house, I'd say, than this, and then she put her vocals down over it, and then I kind of rewrote the track. But it was kind of, again, this one lyrically was really synchronous because the lyrics, which are about a dream that she had, really fit the vibe of this kind of dreamscapey and kind of about like running away, running towards something better. But yeah, she's amazing. She has such a great voice and great energy. She's a wicked performer and an artist. And then musically, the kind of impetus for me, I think a lot on the record actually, but particularly so on this track, was like it's channeling a lot of the stuff that I grew up listening to. So like a lot of when I grew up in Italy and stuff, there was like this very big house music thing there, particularly so there. So I didn't really grow up listening to bands until I started listening to metal a little bit on maybe at like when I was like 12, 13. But prior to that, I was really just listening to chart music and dance music. And for me, I think a lot of that... Yeah. So everyone's just getting so excited. Yeah. I've been hyped up in here. So it was kind of channeling a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff really sticks out in my head from when I was growing up. So even like on Be This Way, and on this track, there's like kind of Groove Armada, Crystal Waters, like Snap. A lot of that 90s stuff was very influenced. I know I guess it's just quite a done thing at the moment, but for me, it's very much part of my musical DNA. It's not like... It's almost harder for me not to write 90s sounding music. I really struggle. But yes, that's kind of where it was at. I leaned into it.
Yeah. I feel like people from like our generation, I think we're not too similar ages, but really, I think growing up in that time was like where obviously 90s music was so part of like that's kind of kicked things off. But then you mentioned metal, like I think there was always like a bit of a metal phase.
Yeah.
But then also like whilst coming out of the like metal, like new metal rock phase, like I was into drum and bass and jungle and rave music, and it all just I think there was like an arc of like people kind of growing up from like 90s to I suppose like end of the noughties where the taste is super eclectic because
totally.
There were so many scenes that were coming at you all at the same time and it wasn't like a tribalist thing. It wasn't like, oh well, if you listen to jungle you can't be into metal ever. Do you know what I mean? It's
it was very exciting, I think, musically, and I still think about this a lot, about like how much new, like when I hear something that's totally new and totally different, it's really exciting. I find it's happening less. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but it happens less for me now than it did as a kid, or growing up, there was so many new things, and like one thing kind of fed into the next. Like it was kind of like, you know, the emotional quality of drum and bass, and then metal or rave wasn't too dissimilar in aspect, and then, you know, same like the dance music thing. Elements of that was borrowed by like new rave, whatever, any of these other genres. So it all kind of blended into itself. And for me, I'm always referencing these things. I don't listen to that music anymore, but it's very much part of like my musical brain, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, like who you are, yeah.
Yeah.
So with this new EP, I suppose that you've sort of said that like some of it came together sort of in and out of the pandemic, and I know that like it's kind of like, don't talk about the pandemic again. I think we're now at a process where we're sort of like that whole time. Obviously, it now feels like it's a little bit in the distance, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But how was that for you as an artist? I suppose everything kind of ground to a halt, and then for some artists, I think it was really great because it gave them some time and breathing space. And then for other artists, I think it was like really, obviously,
jarring,
totally jarring, difficult time with writer's block or just feeling completely like helpless. And then now, obviously, we've come out of all of that and everything's kind of coming back and festivals are back and releases are back and now you can actually tour the releases.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how was it?
For me, I'm very fortunate that it was a very, very like productive and positive period for me. Prior to that, I'd been on tour, like with the band, I'd been on tour pretty relentlessly for about 10 years. Like there was a point in time where we did, I think, 180 shows in like 15 months or something like that. It was pretty full on. Not to say I didn't enjoy it, of course, but I wouldn't have had time to engage with doing this kind of stuff. So it was great for me. I'd kind of had quite an intense period before that, and I was kind of writing and I was working. I was chefing at a rehab, which is where I'd worked for a few years, and that just kept me sane. I really loved that job so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had that going on, and it was really great. I got to spend time writing music, skateboarding, and cooking for people. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
For me musically, it was really, really great. I think I'd have been in a very different place now if it wasn't for that. So I'm very grateful to have had that period. I know it was so different for a lot of people.
Yeah. But yeah, just a moment to sort of, reset.
Yeah, completely that. And that's very much influenced the way that I kind of do things now, and giving myself time and taking a step back and not getting too busy being busy. Yeah. Well, trying.
Trying. Yeah. Tell me about Flamingods. What's the latest with that? Is there, are you guys still hanging out? Still making stuff?
Yes, yeah. We've got some stuff coming up. We've got a few bits and a few shows coming up this year. We're dipping our toe back in, and we'll have some news to share later this year for sure. Yeah, which is we're excited about. But yeah, we're just kind of we've got our heads down. And last year we were pretty busy getting writing and getting stuff ready. So yeah, there'll be news soon there.
Very exciting. Any Flamingods fans out there are looking forward to hearing if there's new stuff. Can't wait to hear the next stage of that. And then what about Mera Bhai? Are you making more EPs? Have you got any more releases planned in the next year? Or
yeah, I've been writing like an absolute workhorse. So I've got a whole load of stuff I need to decide what's going to happen with. But yeah, since I've set up my own label now, I've kind of got a bit more control, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Not that there was any problematic musical relationships or industry relationships before, but just like having a bit more control over how I do things and when I do things, and how and when I do them and how I want to do them. It means that a bit more freedom there. So yeah, there will be more stuff. Nothing firm to announce just yet, but there's definitely some more stuff.
Yeah, God, people are so loud today. I'm loving it. They're like walking past the studio, like, hey. Yeah. So is that just to put out music from you, or are you going to be putting out music from friends as well and like other people? Yeah,
I've got some pretty cool concepts. I've got one in particular that I'm really, really excited to share, which hopefully will happen later this year, but that's like going to be a big surprise as well. I'm kind of just the start of this year, I'm juggling quite a lot, and I'm just trying to make sure that I give every release my full attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a couple of things that I'm very excited to share. So there will be other stuff as well. It won't just be a Mera Bhai label.
Okay.
A Mera Bhai passion project.
Fantastic. Yeah. So we're going to play another track from this EP, and then you have brought in a bit of vinyl, haven't you?
I have.
Just a couple of like influences or tracks that you love, because we were going to do this last month for February for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out. So still. It works.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Exactly.
Any time of the week, any day of the month. So we're gonna talk about a bit of vinyl after this. But this is Be This Way featuring Private Joy. Tell me about this track.
She's absolutely amazing. She's like one of the most talented people I know. Got like the voice of an angel, insanely talented producer, like instrumentalist, and she's in Love Scene as well. and DJ. That's actually how I first came to meet her. She was DJing at a festival we were playing at in Manchester, and we were like, my God, her selections are off the charts. So yeah, we got her to DJ. Asked her kindly to DJ at our following London headline show, and she did. And then I came to realize that she was just like amazingly talented, and I was like, I absolutely had to work with her. Similarly to Maria, I sent her some demos and just said, pick whatever you want to work on. And she picked Be This Way, which again, in its early format, sounded very, very different to how it does now. Yeah, and that was it. She just sent me some stuff. I think she sent me a few different takes, and then we just went from there. No time in studio together, but it was good. I think in a weird way, I quite liked working on my own, on people's vocals, because it just gave me time and space to sit with them. I think there's definitely benefits to working with people in studio. There's a vibe, there's an energy there, and like the most recent stuff I've written as well, it was very much about like getting people in the room and writing. But with this, you get to just sit with someone's vocals and really be with them and think of like how they fit the track and how best to work with them, what they're saying, not just like the words, but the vibe. Yeah. So it was cool. It was great working with her vocals. They were brilliant.
Well, let's hear it. This is Be This Way, Mera Bhai on Soho Radio. That vocal is just gorgeous, isn't it?
So great.
Have you played this out yet?
I have, yeah. So I've done a club edit of this.
Yeah.
And there's a remix by the founder of Daytime as Provat, Rahman, which is like a baseline edit of this, which is great. Yeah, I've definitely played them out.
It's such a vibe. So that is brand new Mera Bhai from the new EP that is coming out very, very soon indeed, on April the 6th. Relax into yourself. And I've got Mera Bhai in the studio, and you brought in a couple of vinyl, and I asked you to just bring in a couple of vinyl that you love or that maybe inspired you. So we're going with this one first. What's this?
The first one, it's a Strictly Rhythm release, I think from 97, I believe, House of Swing. And yeah, I think there was as we were kind of talking earlier about sort of musical arc of, things that we're into growing up, there was a huge point in time where when I was DJing, I really stopped listening to like the 90s thing. And it was all about like really new sounding stuff. And this was in sort of like 2009, 10. I just wasn't really into it, and then someone picked this up for me, and it was a real entry point back into that sound, into that time and that vibe, and like kind of listening to stuff that I guess I missed out on from that era because I was too young. I was listening to way more commercial stuff. And this like kind of delving back into this has been great because it's been a real influence for me, like in terms of what stuff I play, but also in terms of referencing stuff. Because I think when I'm producing, I think it's really easy, and I always fall into this trap of just thinking like more is more and adding more. But like these 90s records, they slap. They're so good, and there's a real vibe to them. They were really like. They were stripped back. There was way less technology then to do stuff, but it was about a big vibe. So yeah, I think for me it's quite an influence.
Awesome. Right, well let's hear it. This is Swing Work.
Work. Say work. Say work it now. Say work.
Well, this is a bit of a banger. I love it.
Big vibe.
Tune called House of Swing Work. Swing Work. So from Strictly Rhythm release, and as chosen by Mera Bhai, who is my live guest in the studio. It's been so nice having you in, and I was like just so happy to get to chat to you all about this new EP and
nice, thank you, same,
and all about what you're up to. And we've got another record to play, just to kind of like play out the show, and also another one of your chosen vinyl. So tell me a bit about this one.
So the next one couldn't be more different than the last. It's a Mahavishnu orchestra track called All in the Family, which is off a record written by John McLaughlin. I think also part of my inescapable obsession with the 90s, probably sometime in the 90s, I'm guessing around the same period, 96, 97. And I still find myself listening to a lot of this kind of stuff. Still a lot of Santana, Mahavishnu, kind of more like Psyche stuff. It's just free and it's loose, and I think it's really important for me musically to not reference too much dance music, because otherwise you just make music that sounds like the music you listen to. and it's just wild. It's like out there. I don't know. I don't really know what more to say about that. What more I can say about it? But yeah, it's just really out there, and I think for me, whenever I listen to this stuff, it just cleans my ears out and cleans my brain out when I'm just listening to like graded dance music all the time. And I think musically, I like try to, even on the EP, I've done this a lot. There's like a lot of guitar and saxophone, and it's all sort of part of the palette for me. I think crossing over and using like those elements, those tools, those kind of brush strokes from these records, I think it's important for me to weave that in. I think in the end it kind of leaves me with the question of where does the music sit? Does it like actually make sense in any particular area? But I think it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's music, you know. So this kind of stuff really influences me in terms of my writing, and also because playing drums is still my primary instrument, so I'm kind of behind the kit playing and practicing every single day, and this is very much a lot of the stuff that I listen to and playing as well. So all kind of like everything kind of bleeds into each other, and this is kind of couldn't be more different than the last track, but it's still part of my musical kind of catalogue, I guess.
Can you remember getting the vinyl? It says £6, bargain.
It is actually a bargain. I was like, this, but probably £6 because the cover is terrible. It looks like you should be paid £6 to take that record, but it's great. It's
kind of just a face and a man looking very kind of it's really bad.
It's not good,
but the tune, it's going to be great. Thank you so much, Mera Bhai, for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Georgie. Pleasure to be back and see you again. Catch up.
And thank you all so much for listening to the show. I will be back in 4 weeks' time with another instalment of Music Discovery. So join me then. In the meantime, listen back to the shows and stuff. Music Discovery, Georgie Rogers on Mixcloud and Soho Radio on Mixcloud. I'll catch you soon. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon, and we'll play out with this one. And this track is called
All in the Family.
All in the Family.